I know you had a pretty bad accident like a few months ago, right?
I actually did, yeah. I actually broke my jaw.
I'm observing your jaw to see you had it wired shut and all that.
I did. I was like running through my house and I slipped and fell and hit my face.
If he was going to get plastic surgery, he wouldn't get that. Come on.
You got a good jaw, man.
No,
Oh my God. You're just stirring the pot.
No, it was funny. It sucked. I almost died, but we're good.
But you're good now.
Yeah.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
What's up, guys? Derek, moreplates.com. Today we are revisiting Jawgate, the Zac Efron debacle from last year where he showed up looking nearly unrecognizable, seemingly in a overnight time frame. Like the guy has looked, like a High School Musical, pretty face, one of the best looking guys in the industry for years. He's seen as the pretty boy, Baywatch lifeguard guy, Zac Efron, the fucking ladies' man. Now, all of a sudden he shows up to this Bill Nye interview or promotional or whatever it was last year and looks nearly unrecognizable, resembling, classic handsome Squidward is kind of what a lot of people were saying. And that sort of plays into potentially some of the motivations behind it. But a lot of people are wondering, is this, and I'll get into what I mean by that later, but a lot of people are wondering, is this plastic surgery? Is this, wisdom teeth removal? Did he injure himself? Is he using copious amounts of human growth hormone? Was one of the, prevalent ones as well as anabolic steroids that cause bloating in your face. Like you see a lot of mass added here. The guy has like an entirely new chin essentially. His jaw is way wider. All of a sudden these features are more masculine and protruding. A lot of people would say not in a positive manner though, because it's so dramatically different from the before that it almost is essentially a different human entirely. This is a side-by-side of an interview that he did, I don't know, like a late night show here on the left, looking like his normal self, and then him on the right during the promotional video that kind of took the internet by storm and had people freaking the fuck out. And a lot of, speculation ensued, a lot of, theories were drawn, etc. And a lot of people thought it would just go away. People thought it was just a temporary thing. He probably had his wisdom teeth removal. Like this is a very, very famous and well-known social media influencer that I believe is also a plastic surgeon, super popular on TikTok and YouTube. And he basically said, I think this is wisdom teeth removal. This was last year around August, and this was months after the reveal. And here it is, doctor diagnoses Zac Efron's face.
Everybody is talking about Zac Efron and how strange he looks. Has he had plastic surgery to reshape his jawline, Botox, or fillers? I don't think so. I actually think he's had dental surgery, not plastic surgery. That's why he's swollen in these areas. If you've had your wisdom teeth taken out, did you look like this?
That is a wild stretch of a fucking reach in my opinion, and I don't think anyone, if you've had wisdom teeth removal, we can all attest to some swelling, significant irritation, blah, 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 but for it to remain for a year and a half at this point, like we are closing in on the end of 2022, well, coming in on Q4 here pretty hot, and Zac still looks the same. This is a shot of him at a promotional for some event the other day. And I did, kind of like a chronological timeline in this last video about, the changes and whatnot, how he's looked historically, some of the, very, very bold claims as well. Like this is plastic surgeon, Dr. Michael Obang. Zac looks very healthy. He might be on supplements such as HGH and testosterone. He might also have had some facial fillers to build his cheeks. So it's like, obviously right up my alley, the HGH testosterone claim. Is he doing like bodybuilding, aggressive shit in order to undergo like crazy acromegalic development changes? So what we'll get into, because this is now a long-standing thing. This is not just a wisdom teeth removal as asserted by Tony Yoon MD, or, probably not an injury either, let's be honest. The guy, if he fell and had some like, I don't know, like a break in his jaw or something, and then he has some swelling from, wiring his mouth shut or whatever, is it going to like stay with you for fucking a year and a half? If this is what he is looking like, this seems to be permanent changes. That is just what he is living with at this point. And I think, his fans and whatnot should accept, regardless of what the outcome was, that this seems to be something that is sticking around. I don't think that this is something that is going to go away, and it seems to be representative of his current look at this point. Anytime he is shot by the paparazzi or at official events, He very much looks like this at this point. But again, like I mentioned briefly, and I'm getting to now, finally, he has actually talked about it in an interview. He's been avoiding it for a while, or just stays off the internet. Apparently he's very good at it. But apparently he's had multiple injuries. So is this in fact a jaw break? A new one? Because he has had multiple injuries. About 4 years ago, in the span of a year and a half, he tore his ACL, dislocated his shoulder, broke his wrist, throughout his back. He also shattered his jaw, Zac says, though that was not a training injury. He'd been running through his house in socks and slipped, smacking his chin against the granite corner of a fountain. He lost consciousness, and when he woke up, he recalls his chin bone hanging off his face. That would be fucking terrifying, I can imagine. I study him as he eats a crab leg. His jaw area looks much as it has always looked. This may be salient intel for some, because in April 2021, after Efron appeared in a clip promoting an Earth Day special from Bill Nye, the internet came alive with chatter about Efron's body, this time with speculation that he had plastic surgery on his face. So the Men's Health interviewer actually asked him about this, and apparently he says, Zac, that the masseter muscles used for chewing work together with the other muscles of the face like a symphony. When he was injured, the muscles on the inside of his face and jaw had to compensate. Zac works with a specialist and does physical therapy to mediate this, he says. But in Australia, he took some time off from that too. The masseters just grew, he says, shrugging. They just got really, really big. Efron says he didn't know about jawgate until his mother called to ask if he'd gotten plastic surgery, because though he appreciates that social media can be useful for promoting projects he cares about, he generally avoids it. This is a survival tactic, one that he has been owning since he became a public figure at 17. If I valued what other people thought of me to the extent that they might think I do, I definitely wouldn't be able to do this work. So a lot of people, ran with that, made stories, a lot of publicists, tabloids, pop culture news. There's a lot of TikTok channels and whatnot kind of summarizing the situation and giving their insight. And the comment section is pretty, some of it is pretty polarizing. But let's get, this is one of the videos that actually caught my attention initially and kind of, led me down the rabbit hole of the situation again.
Zac Efron is clearing the air on his viral face transformation from 2021. That resulted in his face looking like this. This caused so many plastic surgery rumors, and people were going in on Zac. Zac is the 2022 Men's Health cover star, and in his interview, he talks about it. He says that he shattered his jaw while running in his house with socks on. Ouch. Zac says that he slipped and hit the corner of a fountain, and that he passed out and woke up to his chin bone hanging off his face. While Zac was in recovery, his facial muscles got really, really big. I guess his muscles were overcompensating from the injury, so he worked with a physical therapist to counteract their growth. And when Zac took a break in Australia, the muscles just grew. When this went viral in April 2021, Zac's friend came out and denied the rumors that he got plastic surgery. And his mom was actually the one who told him that everyone thought he had got work done because he's not really on social media. But Zac wasn't really fazed. He tells Men's Health, if I valued the way people thought about me to the extent that they think I do, I definitely wouldn't be able to do this work. Zac has had many injuries that he talks about in the interview, but one thing's for sure, this man is so handsome, always has been and always will be. Let me know your thoughts down below.
So, as you would expect, the comment section, a little bit divided, but a lot of people are saying he has 100% had work done. A recent interview shows his cheeks, eyes, lips, and jawline are all different. I don't believe him at all. Literally crying face. I don't know. It didn't look like he got plastic surgery to me. It looked like his face was just swollen. I don't believe this at all. Okay, but who runs in the house with socks on over the age of 10? I believe that. The only difference in his face is his jaw and lips. You can pull up the comments and see from the lips up, he looks the same. Love Zac regardless of anything, to be honest. It's the third Bogdanov brother. I mean, I don't get why people don't believe it. It clearly still looks swollen, and jaw surgery takes a lot to heal. Accidents happen. I'll believe it when I see his face go back to normal. Crying, laughing face times a million. I don't believe him for a second. People who don't believe this have never seen the dramatic difference that jaw injury / movements make to the face. So the thing that was kind of weird about this is he's talking about this jaw injury that happened. He slips, he falls, he breaks his jaw in the fountain. He has this dramatic issue. It's literally like it almost killed him. Like he says here in another interview recently, he is kind of under the microscope at this point after actually opening up about it. And in this ET interview, they actually grill him on it live in a video, which, this Men's Health one was just seemingly a snippet from like the written portion they just transcribed, whereas the actual Men's Health video that they filmed didn't have that part in it whatsoever. But in this ET one, they actually get into it and goes viral, over 1 million views right now. And she asks straight up, like, what's up? People are talking about plastic surgery, and you had this injury that happened. Like, is there the overlap in that? explain how this dramatic fucking difference happened, and he kind of goes into it, but you can tell he's a little bit not thrilled with the topic coming up.
Okay, you had to recently dispel rumors that you had undergone plastic surgery. You actually experienced your jaw being shattered, in 2013?
So this is the weird thing. The wording, the selection of words here. Listen very carefully.
Plastic surgery. You actually experienced your jaw being shattered, in 2013?
So you experienced your jaw being shattered in 2013. But the start of it...
Okay, you had to recently dispel rumors that you had undergone plastic surgery. You actually experienced your jaw being shattered, in 2013?
What, in 2013? As in literally almost a decade ago. Yeah, almost a decade ago, and he's about to touch on it and explain the massive difference, essentially, that accounts for what's happening right now, presumably, but from 2013.
What did you make of the speculation online? Your mom was even the one that brought it up to you, like, what's going on? Why did you feel like you had to address those rumors now?
I didn't really.
No?
I didn't feel it at all.
You
When my mom told me, I don't really read the internet, so I don't really give a but,
So as you can tell pretty easily, he doesn't seem very thrilled to talk about this whatsoever. He is like, almost coming across like a little bit confrontational to what she says. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm not the one who's bringing this up. This is not something that I deem important to discuss whatsoever. And it is not even a topic of conversation.
Good for you.
Yeah, it was just if that's the direction that it was going,
If he was going to get plastic surgery, he wouldn't get that. Come on.
You got a good job, man.
No,
Oh my.
So this is a really awkward interaction because it's like this guy, I don't think he knows what the fuck's going on. Like I'm sure believes Zac, thoroughly. And when Zac says that, he had his jaw hanging off of his face in 2013, smacking a fountain. Again, running through his house in socks, slipped, smacking his chin on the granite corner of a fountain, lost consciousness when he wakes up, chin bone hanging off his face. When you tell people that, if you're literal partner in whatever it is that, whatever project they're working on, whatever, like a lot of these people have no idea what goes into like human growth hormone, acromegaly, plastic surgery, fucking dental work. Like, the layman is just going to be like, yeah, that's probably what actually happened. Why would he lie about it? And he's, on board, and he's like, but makes a comment that's pretty fucking rough. If indeed this was plastic surgery, he's like, if he was gonna get plastic surgery, he wouldn't get that. Like, come on. And Zac's just like, and you can tell, at least from what I perceive, it's touchy because it's like, I would say the likelihood is higher than not that there was something cosmetic done here. But, and then, the ET interviewer, chimes in. She's like, come on, you got a good job, bro. And it's just fucking awkward, dude.
Wouldn't get that. Come on.
You got a good job, man.
no,
Oh my God. You're just stirring the pot.
no, it was funny. It sucked. I almost died, but we're good.
But you're good now?
Yeah.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
Very awkward. Very, very awkward. Yeah, he's trying to get off the subject. It's fucking terrible. Don't make jokes about it. It actually sucked. I almost died. Fuck you. Basically what he's saying, trying to get off the subject, and then this very, very awkward finale to the conversation to try and get off the subject. You're good now. Yup. Just short, not sweet. Not short and sweet, just short. And it's not very pleasant of an interaction, as you can tell.
No, it was funny. It sucked. I almost died, but we're good.
But you're good now?
Yeah.
Good. That's good to see you in a healthy, happy place.
Thank you.
Very awkward. And then they go on to talk about the project, but you can tell Zac's like, get this fucking topic, get off this topic. I don't like it. And he does not want to be talking about it whatsoever. And I would understand too, like, even if he did have work done, the whole point of getting work done presumably is that for it to be so subtle and well done that people don't even recognize it as actual surgery. It's just like, you just look younger or better. And it's so, insignificantly different, or is so representative of natural features that you just think that he is progressing in a way that he's like, maturing like fine wine or, whatever. And it's not representative of going like heavily under the knife for some significant thing. So circling back to, a lot of people hear this and they're like, okay, it's clearly this injury. He slipped, fell, broke his jaw like dramatically. And now the recovery process, he was swollen. And then he has this, counterbalancing of muscular hypertrophy. Like he says here, the masseters, they just grew. They got really, really big. So, when you're not working the muscles, you have these, the compensation of other muscles that in order to support, normal functions on a day-to-day basis. It sounds like a reasonable hypothesis, right? But again, we're talking about something that happened in 2013. So I'm not really sure where people are gathering this conclusion, like, oh yeah, it makes sense. Like, okay, you know, totally get it. Like, not only does this not make sense to me from the actual hypertrophy context, but in addition, the timeline is not even close. So unless this was a second new injury, like, it sounds very much like he's describing this incident that happened in literally 2013. So if you dig hard enough, you can find some of these articles. Zac Efron breaks jaw after accidental fall at home, November 13th, 2013. Actor's mouth is wired shut. You won't be seeing Zac for a while, or Smile for a while. E! News has exclusively learned that the actor's mouth is wired shut after he broke his jaw over the weekend. And even in this interview, she even says, like, in 2013, and then they talk about, you know, how his face looks different now. And it's like they're literally discussing a 2013 incident.
Okay, you had to recently dispel rumors that you had undergone plastic surgery. You actually experienced your jaw being shattered, in 2013? What did you make?
In 2013. Yeah, I did. And then, you know, discussing it as if it's like, he's literally answering the question about a 2013 incident, and like, it's very, very much almost seemingly a diversion tactic of sorts. Or just like straight up answering the question. Like, you can't really fault him for it, but I mean, it just doesn't make any logical sense whatsoever. So he not only broke his jaw when he fell, but he also suffered a gash that required stitches, and it was slipping at the entrance of his home in a puddle of water that he didn't see. But they go into this in an interview that has since been deleted from the internet, seemingly. So this was more news about it. Breaks his jaw after falling at home, mouth wired shut. Here it was not just broken jaw, gash that required stitches. So again, this was back when he was 25 years old, years ago. 2013, has his mouth wired shut, he's drinking through a straw, and he actually loses a bunch of weight. This was one of the follow-up articles, photographed for the first time since breaking his jaw, goes skateboarding. So when we see his face here, this is back in 2013 in December, after that, you know, jaw wired shut for 6 weeks scenario, where he shattered his jaw on the fountain. He is seen skateboarding and looking like this, which is literally what he would normally look like, you know, from what I can tell. So from the inception of his career in High School Musical and getting closer to 2021, he has basically just looked like a normal, maturing guy who is very, very good looking. And even through this incident, when he literally slipped, fell, smashed his chin on this granite fountain, he looked the same, like within short order. Like, he obviously had some swelling, whatever, but he was like basically fine. He had to, you know, take some time off, but he was good. This was an article that has since been removed, or it's just timed out where they are no longer hosting it on their site. Still got his good looks. He's been seen stepping out of LA for the first time since news broke of his facial damage. He's still on the mend. He's seen carrying a towel and an ice pack while heading to his car. So this is still like, while the injury's like fresh, he's like walking around with a fucking ice pack for his face, and doesn't look anywhere near what it looks like here in these new images. No, not at all. Like, this is not representative whatsoever of the injury from what I could tell, but I wanted to get more insight because he actually gave his own personal insight on it back in 2014 when Jimmy Kimmel grilled him about it. So Zac Efron broke jaw on home fountain. This is when it was first revealed. He smashed his face on a fountain and lost 10 to 12 pounds, drinking liquid foods for 6 weeks. What an awkward wipeout. It's been 2 months since Efron broke his jaw at home, but now that awkward moment, actor is finally explaining the injury and why he's looking skinnier on his current press tour. So notably skinnier, not more jacked, not muscular hypertrophy, literally in a severe deficit because he can't eat fucking food. He's been drinking through a straw. I was running through my house and slipped and fell on my face, he said during an interview. And I wanted to find this interview harder to find than you would think, because a lot of the details are skipped over and some of the context and whatnot, and you actually see what his face looks like. Unavailable video, private. I dug a little bit. Ended up finding it. So this is the clip in question, and Kimmel asked him, this is literally the injury that everyone is discussing as the cause for his facial changes, literally 8 years ago, over 8 years ago at this point.
You had a pretty bad accident like a few months ago, right?
I actually did, yeah. I actually broke my jaw.
I'm observing your jaw to see, you had it wired shut and all that?
I did. I was like running through my house and I slipped and fell and hit my face.
So again, he's observing his jaw, and to me, he looks the same. You know, he is pretty much healed at this point. Who knows? Maybe he has some residual swelling, whatever it is, but he had his jaw wired shut from this incident, and this is the incident in question that he literally just touched on in the ET interview in 2022. But I'll let him elaborate, and then we can kind of circle back and talk about some of the other claims as far as, you know, hypertrophy of the opposing muscles, the HGH use, a lot of these, you know, cosmetic surgeons and Beverly Hills fucking specialists think it is or whatever. Because a lot of the comments, again, like, no one seems to really know the answer. And even in that ET viral video that just went, live a few days ago, very, very inconclusive and ambiguous. But let's continue.
How many times have I told you not to run through the house?
Dude, I know. Well, actually, let me start over. This story starts kind of cool because I have a fountain in my house. That's kind of dope, right?
Oh, wow.
So I was running through and slipped on water and hit my chin on the fountain in my house. It's not a big fountain, but it's a fountain in my house.
Yeah.
And
So he slips, falls, breaks his jaw in the fountain, and it's not a pretty scene. He gets up, and apparently his brother looks at him and says immediately, get to the hospital. You're not looking too hot right now.
my brother was there, and I was like, oh, jeez, man. He's like, are you okay? And I go, I don't know, man. Am I okay? And he goes, no, you're not okay.
Oh, really?
And I go, he's like, we're going to the hospital. And I'm like, okay. Next thing I know, I'm like waking up.
So he ends up, jaw wired shut, 6 weeks, liquid diet, as you would expect. And when you were in a severe deficit, like literally the cause of losing weight is a deficit of energy. If you're in a calorie deficit, that is how you lose weight. There's no other explainable reason other than energy intake relative to energy expenditure. So if you are losing 10 to 12 pounds during a time frame where you have this injury, because you literally can barely even consume food, you're drinking shit through a straw, what is the probability that you're going to experience hypertrophy in muscles that you've been using your whole life simply to counterbalance the supporting lack there of things that have been injured in that surrounding area to then support the chewing? Like the whole story just is so odd and seems like such a reach. But of course, I could be wrong, but to me, this just seemed kind of insane, to be honest.
And
Did you get stitches and everything like that?
yeah, my jaw was wired shut and I couldn't talk.
How long was the jaw wired shut?
6 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was pretty gnarly.
Was this before? Did you have to drink your?
Dude, I was
Thanksgiving
drinking
turkey
food
through a straw?
solidly for 6 weeks, just only liquid food.
Oh, that's gotta.
So a month and a half recovery time, and he's back getting interviewed about this in January of 2014, and this happened a couple months prior, and his face does it not look the same? To me, it looks representative of what Zac Efron looks like, but notably a very pretty boy face, which I think kind of ties into what may have actually happened, which I'll get to after. Let's continue.
Be terrible.
Yeah, it sucked.
And would you get special foods brought in, or would you throw things into the Vitamix and blend it up?
A little bit of both.
A little bit of both.
Yeah,
Wow.
that Vitamix came. Yeah, shout out to Vitamix. You saved my friggin' life.
Wow, that would be quite a commercial for them. It saved.
So I think later, or at this point, he probably mentions the weight loss, and it's fairly dramatic. To lose that much weight, you're in a pretty significant deficit to lose that much weight that quickly.
Zac Efron's life.
It did.
And you lost a lot of weight from that too, right?
I did, man. I lost 10 to 12 pounds.
Wow,
So-
you should write a book about how to lose weight by
Smashing your jaw. So that is why apparently he looked slimmer when he was doing his promotional tour for for the movie at that time. And as you would expect, when you circle all the way back to 2022 now, where he says that he had this compensation and his masters grew really big, they just got really, really big and if I actually valued what people thought of me to the extent they may think I do, I definitely wouldn't be able to do this work. But it's is that really the case? Because to me, this almost seems like the opposite potentially, not necessarily faulting him for it, but it is really odd to make that statement so matter of fact, and for this, awkward interaction to be occurring during the interview where they're talking about, he wouldn't get plastic surgery, and he's just like, yeah, I definitely fucking wouldn't. It was clearly an injury from 2013. This is what the comment section is. As someone who had the same surgery as him and had to fight off rumors in high school and college, I get what he's going through. He had the implant done instead of the reconstruction, and he's still really swollen. I was almost 2 years post-op. I feel for him. But again, this is a 2013 injury. Was there another jaw break that happened that he's not mentioning? You think if it was actually that, you would just be very, very forward and be like, yeah, last year I had a horrible injury again. This is the second time I fucked up my jaw, believe it or not. Crazy, wild scenario. How the fuck did it happen? I don't know. But instead, he gets very, very uptight about the situation, not very open to discuss it. You would think it would be a wild story to be explaining if this happened to you twice and just saying exactly why it happened. But when you were trying to divert attention away from the subject matter, getting almost annoyed about it when it's brought up, saying how you almost died from a 2013 incident, being very short with the interviewer, you can't help but be skeptical about what the actual reason is. Down here, he's obviously on HGH. Look at his hands. He's prepping for the wrestling movie, The Iron Claw. Yeah, but his face was like this before, but HGH does have the widening of the jaw. I did not see his hand, and we'll have to take a look at that. Could be HGH and steroids. It seems he landed in the hands of bad doctors / plastic surgeons who were using him for his money and not advising him as they should. Sad face. Yeah, he did not get lip injections, and steroids and HGH don't enlarge your bones, right? Crying laughing face. Does anyone know what happened to his jaw? It happened in 2013. Face changed way after that, man. Exactly, that was a long time ago. His jaw got huge just before, you know what, I think. And the swelling went down since. Before and after pics are dramatic. And I think he has lip fillers too. I still love him, but he for sure got work done. He said in the original interview the reason his jaw looks different is because after his surgery, the jaw breaking the muscles in his face has no longer worked in the same unison they're meant to. Due to that, he has to have ongoing physio, but he stopped physio for a while when filming because his masters grew in size to have a much more squared, wide look. Yeah, he got the jaw surgery in 2013 after shattering his jaw, but what the fuck does that have to do with this recent surgery he got within the last year that makes him look different? Exactly. As I posted in this comment section, he literally has a superhero John Cena looking jaw now, which isn't going to suddenly happen with just reconstructive surgery. I don't know what he was aiming for, but it looks like Glenn from Family Guy. He looks awful. So there's a lot of rough comments in the comment section. A lot of people being very, judgmental on his decision-making process. A lot of people speculating about hormone use. What I can say for certain is it has absolutely nothing to do with human growth hormone and actual anabolic steroids. This is something that in his peak of physical accomplishment and body composition changes for Baywatch, for example, did he have any of these morphological changes in his, skull? No, he didn't. And that is when he would have been at the peak of exposure of whatever he was using. He actually touches on drug use very, very lightly in that Men's Health article, which we'll get into probably in another video. But if you were going to be using like high amounts of growth hormone for, recovery purposes, if you're going to be using anabolic steroids, like it would have been used back in his role preparation for some of the most physically demanding jobs ready to look at his peak, which I'm sure there was some involvement of that, but it has no significant impact to a degree that could change your facial structure this dramatically, this quickly. If you're going to have acromegaly and facial changes from human growth hormone deployment, this would be something that would occur at a very abusive dosages that he probably wouldn't have been using to begin with, and over years and years of exposure. This isn't something that happens overnight like he had. To me, this seems representative of cosmetic intervention. It is not his, masseters overgrowing during an injury like we can see right here. This is when the injury happened, and if anything, he looks like pretty much the fucking same. And for years thereafter, he remained the same and had no structural changes whatsoever that were notable other than just classic, aging process where he looked like he was just becoming a more mature version of himself, essentially, with no cranial changes whatsoever. His jaw wasn't getting dramatically different. The only changes you would really see over the years were if he was getting fatter or slimmer and leaner for a role, and then you would see more prominence of his facial features, but never see like actual bones and shit sticking out that literally weren't there before, like you have now. So no, this isn't like a bodybuilding related thing from a masseter hypertrophy like overcompensation situation, especially in a calorie deficit when you're losing 10 to 12 pounds. You were not going to be overcompensating with muscles that are growing when you are severely depriving yourself and barely able to eat food, and then sustaining those changes thereafter and somehow having them like only visually appear. Like, it's just the timeline makes no sense, the explanation makes no sense, none of it makes sense. And I think he's kind of banking on the fact that it doesn't make sense, which is fine because he just doesn't want to talk about it whatsoever, and people are kind of imposing the situation on him because he's a public figure who, if you have a major dramatic cosmetic change, like it's reasonable that you're going to get asked about it. And I'm sure that's why he gets so touchy about it, because it is probably, from what I speculate, to be actual surgical intervention from a cosmetic aspect. And I think the actual reason would be to look more masculine. I think he is, now I could be way the fuck off because it could just be, who knows what it is for sure. My speculation would be that he wants to get away from the pretty boy image, the High School Musical Zac Efron guy, which I'm sure he has been recently. I don't follow his movies enough to really know like what the perception of him is overall, but I imagine getting a more masculine look with more masculine features would be something that is appealing to somebody who has softer, more, pretty boy type features and is seen potentially as getting pigeonholed into certain roles that may otherwise be like the pretty boy, I don't know, the guy teenage girls have a crush on, whatever it is, rather than like a serious masculine, like, mature actor, which may be what he is trying to transition to. And perhaps his goal was something a bit more subtle, but still noticeable. And it kind of went off the deep end a little bit and became way more dramatically noticeable than was otherwise intended. Or maybe this is exactly what he wanted and he's, you know, not very happy with the outcome of the situation from a people's perception of it and like bringing to light of it. And who really knows what the real situation is? But to me, this is like, you know, people are saying handsome Squidward shit like, you know, Quagmire, you know, chin or whatever it was in the comment section about Family Guy. Or Glenn Quagmire from Family Guy, and saying like wild shit about what he looks like. And, you know, it's not unfounded when you look way different and, you know, the way people are saying it in a derogatory fashion is obviously not ideal because this is, you know, probably a permanent change. And it is kind of just generally rude. But I mean, the change, again, is fucking huge. And it does seem to be representative of what I would imagine to be pursuing a more masculine look that is going to afford him more opportunity in the realm of mature, you know, 35 plus year old, like masculine male type roles relative to his, you know, pre-30s kind of like pretty boy image that he's trying to get away from. That's my only logical conclusion. What would justify somebody who is otherwise seen as one of the best looking guys in the industry to then have a surgical change. But again, I can't really rationalize it. I can't make sense of it. All I can really say is it is not human growth hormone. It's not bodybuilding drugs. It's not this masseter hypertrophy overcompensation situation. In my opinion, I think this is actual straight up plastic surgery. And we've seen this in other guys, like even in the fitness industry. This is a lesser known example because it's not mainstream, but there's a guy named Sergi Constance who looks fucking incredible. This was his baseline. He's like one of the best looking guys in the industry. And then he ended up getting what seems to be a very, very similar intervention done that made him have a similar outcome to Zac, where all of a sudden he has like very, like a, you know, protruding chin, more of a jaw, more masculine features, but largely perceived in a negative aspect because he had such a good looking natural baseline that anything deviating from that is, you know, just comes across as a bit more cosmetic touch-up-y and like, you know, very, very unnatural looking compared to what he had. And it just makes you wonder, like, why did you do it when you were literally like a fucking 10 out of 10 dude to begin with and had everything going for you? We can't really wrap our heads around how guys, even at the top of the top, still have their own insecurities and their own demons they're dealing with. And it's just wild to think that, you know, there are a lot of people that wish they had, you know, better genetics or better this, a better hand of cards they were dealt. But even the guys with seemingly the best hand of cards, they still have their own, you know, insecurities, their own what they perceive to be shortcomings and things they would, you know, wish were different and whatnot, and they're insecure about. And it's just wild that at all levels this happens, even with the Efrons in the world, the Sergi Constances of the world. And I can only speculate. Again, I don't really know because I can't rationalize in my head why Sergi would do this, because there's like, it's not like he's preparing for a role that he needs to look more masculine. The guy was literally like fucking Giga Chad incarnate already, and yet they're still doing this stuff. So no, I don't think Zac's story about like a 2013 incident, even if it was a recent incident, you know, it still wouldn't make sense to me. It's not the drugs. It's not the bodybuilding stuff. It is literally, in my opinion, plastic surgery, but I could be wrong. It's not wisdom teeth. It's not swelling from fucking, you know, an early 2021 wisdom teeth removal or whatever it is. I think this is like very significant plastic surgery work. But again, I don't fucking know anything about plastic surgery, so I could be wrong, but it seems like a fairly educated guess that's likely reasonably accurate. And he seems to be pretty touchy about the situation, and understandably so if you had an outcome that was undesired or is otherwise so dramatic that it is bringing like negative attention to your image when the goal was essentially probably to be perceived as like a net benefit, or else why the fuck would you do it to begin with? So that's my perception. I'm surprised no one has actually looked at the original interview that was done like almost a decade ago to see the actual situation being described here, and is just taking at face value these details here. But from a bodybuilding standpoint, a drug intervention standpoint, none of it makes fucking sense to me. And I think this is just a result of, you know, trying to elevate his image in Hollywood and, you know, trying to create a more masculine look that is representative of what he is trying to achieve in the industry. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. All the comments help the algorithm. They're much appreciated. Like, subscribe, check out my blog, moreplates.com. Follow me on Instagram at moreplates.8, Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter, TikTok, Apple Podcasts. If you want to support the channel, you can check out anything I'm associated with in the video description below. My preventative medicine hormone replacement therapy platform, Gorilla Mind, nootropic formulas, Gorilla Mode, pre-workout formulas that design myself from scratch, recommended diet model for gaining muscle and sports performance, recommended hair loss prevention products, as well as clothing company that sponsors me, as well as anything else I'm associated with. It's all down there in the video description below. Thank you guys for watching. Talk to you soon.